Emile Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So I'm on page 22 on this PDF. Okay. In the north, with its barren soil, men devour much food. In the fertile south, they eat little. This produces another difference. The one is industrious and the other is contemplative. Society shows us in one and the same spot a similar difference between rich and poor. The one dwells in a fertile land and the other in a barren land. The poor has no need of education. The poor man, the education of his own station in life is forced on him. He can have no other. The education received by the rich man from his own station is least fitted for himself and for society. Moreover, a natural education should fit a man for any position. Now, it is more unreasonable to train a poor man for wealth than a rich man for poverty, for in proportion to their numbers, more rich men are ruined and fewer poor men become rich. Let us choose our scholar among the rich. We shall at least have made another man. The poor may come to manhood without our help. For the same reason, I shall not be sorry if Emile came of a good family. He will be another victim snatched from prejudice. Emile is an orphan, no matter whether he has a father or mother. Having undertaken their duties, I'm invested with their rights. He must honor his parents, but he must obey me. That is my first and only condition. Now that seems to go against, what a natural person is, that he must obey me. Now Jean-Jacques Rousseau says you have to like trick your kids. You can't tell them that you're actually training them or that you're going to teach them, because then they'll be skeptical. So you have to teach them without them knowing that they're being taught, and to strengthen their own natural inclinations, so their own curiosities. I must add that so for him to say that he needs to be obeyed, that's a little striking to me, because like you must obey. Um, yeah, but if natural man is to be free, then natural man should not have to obey anybody. I must add that there is just one other point arising out of all this. We must never be separated except by mutual consent. This clause is essential, and I would have tutor and scholar so inseparable that they should regard their fate as one. If once they perceive the time of their separation drawing near, the time which must make them strangers to one another, they become strangers then and there. Each make his own little world, and both of them being busy in thought with the time when they will no longer be together, they remain together against their will. The disciple regards his master as the badge and scourge of childhood. The master regards his scholar as a heavy burden which he longs to be rid of. Both are looking forward to the time when they will part, as there is never any real affection between them. There will be scant vigilance on the one hand, and on the other scant obedience. But when they consider they must always live together, they must needs love one another, and in this way they really learn to love one another. The pupil is not ashamed to follow as a child the friend who will be with him in manhood. The tutor takes an interest in the efforts whose fruits he will enjoy, and the virtues he is cultivating in his pupil form a store laid up for his old age. This agreement made beforehand assumes a normal birth, a strong, well-made, healthy child. A father has no choice and should have no preference. Within the limits of the family God has given him, all his children are his alike. The same care and affection is due to all, crippled or well-made, weak or strong. Each of them is a trust for which he is responsible to the giver. The nature is a party to the marriage contract along with the husband and wife. But if you undertake a duty not imposed upon you by nature, you must secure beforehand the means for its fulfillment, unless you would undertake duties you cannot fulfill. If you take the care of a sickly, unhealthy child, you are a sick nurse, not a tutor. You preserve a useless life. You are wasting the time which should be spent in increasing its value. You risk the sight of a despairing mother reproaching you for the death of her child, who ought to have died long ago. I would not undertake the care of a feeble, sickly child, should he live to 80 years. I want no pupil who is useless alike to himself and others, one whose sole business is to keep himself alive, one whose body is always a hindrance to the training of his mind. If I vainly lavish my care upon him, what can I do but double the loss to society by robbing it of 2 men instead of 1? Let another tend this weakling for me. I am quite willing, I approve his charity, but I myself have no gift for such a task. I can never teach the art of living to one who needs all his strength to keep himself alive. The body must be strong enough to obey the mind. A good servant must be strong. I know that intemperance stimulates the passions, and in course of time it also destroys the body. Fasting and penance often produce the same results in an opposite way. The weaker the body, the more imperious its demands. Imperious. The stronger it is, the better it obeys. All sensual passions find their home in effeminate bodies. The less satisfaction they can get, the keener their sting. A feeble body makes a feeble mind. Hence the influence of a psychic, an art which does more harm to man than all the evils it professes to cure. I do not know what the doctors cure us of, but I know this: they infect us with very deadly diseases: cowardice, timidity, credulity, the fear of death. What matter if they make the dead walk? We have no need of corpses. They fail to give us men, and it is men we need. Medicine is all the fashion in these days, and very naturally. It is the amusement of the idle and unemployed, who do not know what to do with their time, so spend it in taking care of themselves. If by ill luck they happened to be born immortal, they would have been the most miserable of men. A life they could not lose would be of no value to them. Such men must have doctors to threaten and flatter them, to give them the only pleasure they can enjoy, the pleasure of not being dead. I will say no more at present as to the uselessness of medicine. My aim is to consider its bearings on morals. Still, I cannot refrain from saying that men employ the same sophism about medicine as they do about the search for the truth. They assume that the patient is cured and that the seeker after truth finds it. They fail to see that against one life saved by the doctors you must set 100 slain, and against the value of one truth discovered the errors which creep in with it. The science which instructs and the medicine which heals are no doubt excellent, but the science which misleads us and the medicine which kills us are evil. Teach us to know them apart. That's the real difficulty. If we were content to be ignorant of truth, we should not be the dupes of falsehood. If we did not want to be cured in spite of nature, we should not be killed by the doctors. We should do well to steer clear of both, and we should evidently be the gainers. I do not deny that medicine is useful to some men. I assert that it is fatal to mankind. You will tell me, as usual, that the doctors are to blame, that medicine herself is infallible. Well and good. Then give us the medicine without the doctor, for when we have both, the blunders of the artist are 100-fold greater than our hopes from the art. This lion art, invented rather for the ills of the mind than of the body, is useless to both alike. It does less to cure us of our diseases than to fill us with alarm. It does less to ward off death than to make us dread its approach. It exalts life rather than prolongs it. Should it even prolong life, it would only be to the prejudice of the race, since it makes us set its precautions before society and our fears before our duties. It is the knowledge of danger that makes us afraid. If we thought ourselves invulnerable, we should know no fear. The poet armed Achilles against danger, and so robbed him of the merit of courage. On such terms, any man would be Achilles. Would you find a really brave man? Seek him where there are no doctors, where the results of disease are unknown, and where death is little thought of. By nature, a man bears pain bravely and dies in peace. It is the doctors with their rules, the philosophers with their precepts, the priests with their exhortations, who debase the heart and make us afraid to die. Give me a pupil who has no need of these, or I will have nothing to do with him. No one else shall spoil my work. I will educate him myself, or not at all. Not at all. That wise man, Locke, who had devoted part of his life to the study of medicine, advises us to give no drugs to the child, whether as a precaution or on account of a slight ailment. I will go farther, and will declare that as I never call on a doctor for myself, I will never send for one for Emile, unless his life is clearly in danger, when the doctor can but kill him. So the great Emile, right? This fucking poor little Orson Jetta. That's my fictional character. So little baby Orson Jetta, right? Little baby Orson Jetta. We got to make sure that it has no medicine. That's what Jean-Jacques Rousseau said. I know the doctor will make a capital out of my delay. If the child dies, he was called in too late. If it recovers, it was his doing. So be it. Let the doctor boast, but do not call him an except in extremity. As the child does not know how to be cured, he knows how to be ill. The one art takes the place of the other, and is often more successful, as the art of nature. When a beast is ill, it keeps quiet and suffers in silence. But we see fewer sickly animals than sick men. How many men have been slain by impatience, fear, anxiety, and above all by medicine? Men whom disease would have spared, and time alone have cured. I shall be told that animals who live according to nature are less liable to disease than ourselves. Well, that way of living is just what I mean to teach my pupil. He should profit by it in the same way. Hygiene is the only useful part of medicine, and hygiene is rather a virtue than a science. Temperance and industry are man's true remedies. Work sharpens his appetite, and temperance teaches him to control it. To learn what system is most beneficial, you have only to study those races remarkable for health, strength, and length of days. If common observation shows us that medicine neither increases health nor prolongs life, it follows that this useless art is worse than useless, since it wastes time, men, things on what is pure loss. Not only must we deduct that the time spent not in using life but preserving it, but if this time is spent in tormenting ourselves, it is worse than wasted. It is so much to the bad. To reckon fairly, a corresponding share must be deducted from what remains to us. A man who lives 10 years for himself and others without the help of doctors lives more for himself and others than one who spends 30 years as their victim. I've tried both, so I think I have a better right than most to draw my own conclusions. For these reasons, I decline to take any but a strong and healthy pupil, and these are my principles for keeping him in health. I will not stop to prove at length the value of manual labor and bodily exercise for strengthening the health and constitution. No one denies it. Nearly all the instances of long life are to be found among the men who have taken most exercise, who have endured fatigue and labor. Footnote, I cannot help quoting the following passage from an English newspaper, as it throws much light in my opinions. A certain Patrick O'Neill, born in 1647, has just married his seventh wife in 1760. In the 17th year of Charles II, he served in the dragoons and in other regiments up to 1740, when he took his discharge. He served in all the campaigns of William III and Marlborough. This man was never drunk, has never drunk anything but small beer. He has always lived on vegetables, and has never eaten meat except on a few occasions when he made a feast for his relations. He has always been accustomed to rise with the sun and go to bed at sunset, unless prevented by his military duties. He is now in his 130th year. He is healthy, his hearing is good, and he walks with the help of a stick. In spite of his great age, he is never idle, and every Sunday he goes to his parish church accompanied by his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Neither will I enter into details as to the care I shall take for this alone. It will be clear that it forms such an essential part of my practice that it is enough to get a hold of the idea without further explanation. So actually I saw this one education idea where they have exercise bikes. The kids are reading books on top of the exercise bikes. And so I think that's a good combination of your, educating your body and getting your body moving and going, and also exercising your mind. So you're moving your body, so you're getting stronger, your body's getting stronger, and your mind is getting stronger. You're introducing these different ideas, especially if you're reading some good material, the classics, the great books, however you define them, So when our life begins, our needs begin too. The newborn infant must have a nurse. If his mother will do her duty, so much the better. Her instructions will be given her in writing, but this advantage has its drawbacks. It removes the tutor from his charge. But it has to be hoped that the child's own interest and her respect for the person to whom she is about to confide so precious a treasure will induce the mother to follow the master's wishes, and whenever she does, you may be sure she will do better than another. If we must have a strange nurse, make a good choice to begin with. It is one of the misfortunes of the rich to be cheated on all sides. What wonder they think ill of mankind? It is riches that corrupt men, and the rich are rightly the first to feel the defects of the only tool they know. Everything is ill done for them except what they do themselves, and they do next to nothing. When a nurse must be selected, the choice is left to the doctor. What happens? The best nurse is the one who offers the highest bribe. I shall not consult the doctor about Emile's nurse. I shall take care to choose her myself. I may not argue about it so elegantly as the surgeon, but I shall be more reliable. I shall be less deceived by my zeal than the doctor by his greed. There is no mystery about this choice. Its rules are well known, but I think we ought probably to pay more attention to the age of the milk as well as its quality. The first milk is watery. It must be almost an aperient to purge the remains of the meconium curdled in the bowels of the newborn child. Little by little the milk thickens and supplies more solid food as the child is able to digest it. It is surely not without cause that nature changes the milk in the female of every species according to the age of the offspring. So he's making a connection about how the mothers they create milk as the child develops and grows up. So therefore nature has it all figured out. There's also a connection between mother and child. Rousseau is pointing that out. The biggest thing, I guess, for the last part, last 30 seconds, Jean-Jacques Rousseau is a game changer, okay? Before him, I couldn't even get into Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, or Alexander the Great. They was all fucking one another, a bunch of fucking pedophiles, right? The cornerstone of Western civilization, a bunch of fucking pedophiles. But Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he came up and he went ahead and obliterated fucking Plato. Says, let's not be obedient. Let's start teaching our kids to be free.